Hello, beautiful people. I'm thrilled you're here. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Lulu, and this podcast is where we build mental fitness, confidence, and self-love by doing the real inner work of building that self-love and self-worth from the inside out. These conversations are unedited and always from the heart. They are raw and real, with simple tools that meet you exactly where you are. This is about life on your terms. We are now on part 7 of an 8-part series. If you're new, welcome. Every episode stands on its own, so you don't need to have heard the others to get value from this one. But if you'd like the full journey, the earlier episodes are there for you, and I really encourage you to check them out. Here's a quick recap of where we've been. We started with feeling stuck when nothing's technically wrong. Then we explored why knowing what to do doesn't mean you can do it. We looked at confidence, the harsh inner critic. We looked at exhaustion, and last week we talked about why calm can actually make you feel anxious. Every week we've been peeling back another layer, and this week we're getting to something that ties a lot of those layers together. And that is why you keep repeating the same patterns over and over and over. Before we get into it, please share this episode with people in your life who keep saying, "Why does this keep happening to me?" Share it with people who are frustrated with themselves for ending up in the same place again. A share takes a few seconds, and it could change how someone sees themselves today. So thank you. I'd like to tell you about last Tuesday. I was working on my podcast and I caught myself doing something I've done probably 1,000 times. I was looking at another podcaster's numbers, not glancing. I was deep in it, analyzing, comparing their growth to mine. And within about 90 seconds, I'd gone from, "Oh, that's interesting. What can I learn from this?" to, "What the bloody hell am I doing wrong?" And then, "Maybe I'm just not cut out for this." 90 seconds, that's all it took for me to go from curiosity to self-destruction. And the wildest part is that I literally made an episode about this. In episode 50, I talked about the difference between modeling and comparing. I know this pattern of mine. I can describe it to you in detail. I can even give you the neuroscience behind it. And yet there I was last Tuesday, right back in it, like a song I know every word to that I didn't even realize I'd started singing. And I sat there and thought, oh, I know this one. I've seen this pattern before. This is a rerun. Has that ever happened to you? That moment where you catch yourself mid-pattern and think, seriously? This again? I just dealt with this. Maybe for you, it's the relationship where you keep choosing someone who isn't emotionally available. Or a job where you overdo it until you burned out and then wonder why you flattened. Or maybe for you, it's saying yes when everything inside you is screaming no. Or maybe it's reaching for your phone the second you feel something uncomfortable. And before you know it, 45 minutes has passed and you've watched 300 videos of people doing absolutely meaningless things. We all have our reruns, the patterns we keep repeating. And today's question is, why do I keep repeating these same patterns? Most people assume repeating a pattern means they're weak. They assume that they lack discipline, don't have their life together, or they assume that they haven't learned the lesson, that there's something fundamentally messed up with them. Well, I'm going to challenge that. What if our patterns are not proof we're messed up at all? What if our patterns are actually proof that our brain is working perfectly? Stay with me here. I'm going to make sense of all of this. There's a principle in neuroscience you've probably heard called neurons that fire together, wire together. It comes from the amazing work of a Canadian psychologist, Donald Hebb. Simply, it means every time we repeat a behavior, a thought, or an emotional response, we strengthen the neural pathway associated with it. Imagine, the more we think a thought, repeat a behavior, we make that neural pathway in our brain stronger and stronger. We actually make it easier for our brain to go there again, and again, and again. Think of it like this. Imagine your brain has a highway system. Your most repeated patterns, the ones you've been doing for years, maybe even decades, these are 6-lane highways, smooth, fast, well-lit, well-maintained. You've been on that highway so many times that your brain can travel there on autopilot without even thinking about it. Now, the new pattern you're trying to build, the healthier relationship, the boundary you want to set, the different way of responding, that's a rough, dusty, dirt path through a field. No signs, no lighting, completely overgrown. Your brain looks at the dirt path and then looks at the highway and says, yeah, bugger this. That's too hard. I'm going back to the highway. And here's the thing. Your brain's not being lazy. It's being efficient. Our brains are prediction machines. The brain prioritizes what it already knows because familiar is faster. Familiar requires less energy. And to our nervous system, familiar equals safe, even when familiar is miserable. Dr. Gabor Maté talks about something called repetition compulsion. We unconsciously recreate emotional environments that feel familiar because our nervous system learned very early on what so-called normal feels like. Even if that normal was chaotic or painful or lonely, it's what we know. And what we know feels safer than what we don't. So when we keep choosing the unavailable partner, it might not be because we have bad taste. It might be because unavailability felt like home once. When we keep overworking until we crash, it might not be because we can't manage our time. It might be because our worth got tangled up with productivity somewhere along the way, and our brain keeps driving down that highway because it built it when we were 7 years old. Our patterns make sense. They're not random. They're not stupid. And we're not stupid for having them. They are our brains doing what brains do, which is to repeat what it knows. So, if our brains are literally built to repeat patterns, how the hell do we ever change? Well, here's the good news. It's called neuroplasticity. Our brains can change. It can build new pathways. It can learn new patterns. And that's not just a cute idea. It's science. And this is important. It doesn't happen overnight, and it definitely doesn't happen comfortably. And this is where I think most of us get tripped up. Not in the leaving of the old pattern. A lot of us are actually quite good at that part. We make the decision, we leave the relationship, we set the boundary, we put the phone down, we close the laptop, we stop comparing. Good. That takes real strength, and it is genuinely hard. But what happens after we leave the pattern? This is the part we are unprepared for. We leave the old pattern and we expect to feel better, lighter, relieved, free, and instead we feel like crap. We feel restless and foggy, irritated and anxious, bored and lost. Something is off and you can't put your finger on what. We feel like you're doing something wrong, because surely if this was the right decision, it would feel better than this. This is what I call the space between. We've left the old room, we've closed the door, but the new room hasn't opened yet. And we're standing in this in-between space, and it's deeply, deeply uncomfortable. In fact, it sucks. And what do most of us do when we're in the space between? We panic. We think this feels wrong, and therefore it must be wrong. It must be unsafe. And we turn around and run back into that old room, back to the familiar, to what we know, back to our pattern. Not because we're weak, but because the space between is so damn uncomfortable that the old pattern starts to feel like relief. It might be painful, but at least we know that feeling. So you text your ex, not because you miss them, but because you miss the predictability. You say yes to the thing you just set a boundary around, not because you changed your mind, but because the discomfort of disappointing someone feels worse than the discomfort of abandoning yourself. You pick up the phone and numb out, not because you don't care about your growth, but because your brain needs familiar right now. And doom scrolling is a 6-lane familiar highway. This is why patterns repeat, not because you haven't learned, but because you haven't learned to tolerate the uncomfortable space in between. Let me explain what's actually happening in your brain during the space between, because understanding this really helps you move forward. When you break a pattern, your brain is doing enormous work behind the scenes. It's literally rewriting its coding. It's building new neural pathways, and this takes massive amounts of energy. That's why you feel exhausted during big changes, even when you're not physically doing much. Your brain is working overtime. And remember what we talked about in episode 66. Your nervous system flags unfamiliar as potentially dangerous. So you've left the pattern. You're in the space between. Everything is unfamiliar, and your nervous system is sounding every alarm it has. Not because you're in danger, but because you're in new territory. And your brain doesn't have a prediction for what happens next. If you listen to episode 65, this will also make sense. You feel depleted during the space between because your nervous system is on high alert and burning through your energy. And if you've been practicing the micro moments of safety from that episode, those moments are exactly what you need here too. Everything in the series has been building to this moment. The stuckness, the inability to act, the fragile confidence, the inner critic, the exhaustion, the anxiety during calm. These are all part of the same system, and patterns are where they all converge, where they all come together. So here's your tiny tool for this week. I call it the Rerun Reset. It has two parts. Part one is for when you catch yourself in a pattern, when you notice the rerun playing. Instead of, here I go again, with frustration and self-judgment, try, oh, I know this one, and do it with curiosity, like you're flipping through channels and you spot a show you've seen before. No drama, just recognition, just conscious awareness. Notice what is going on, really notice it. Then ask yourself one question. What does this pattern need me to know? What is it trying to get for me that I haven't given myself? Maybe it's safety, maybe it's connection, maybe it's control, maybe it's worth. Don't judge the answer. Just let the question be there. And if you don't have the answer, just allow the question. Simply allow it. That's it for part one. Spot the rerun, get curious about the unmet need underneath it, and don't judge it. Part two is for when you've broken the pattern and you're in the space between. This is where it gets practical, because naming is important, but naming alone won't get you through the discomfort. You need things to actually do. First, you need to learn to self-soothe. And that sounds crazy, but just like we soothe babies, learn to soothe yourself. Thinking comes later. Your brain thinks you're in danger right now, so logic isn't going to help you at this point. Your body needs to feel safe before your mind can catch up. Use the tools you already have from this series. Hand on your heart. 3 slow breaths where the exhale is longer than the inhale. Feel your feet grounded. These aren't wellness extras right now. They're essential. You are telling your nervous system that this is unfamiliar territory, but it is safe enough to stay there. Even if you think those things are dumb, give them a try. Commit. Second, give your brain small, predictable things. When everything feels uncertain, your nervous system needs anchors. It doesn't need a life makeover, just small, repeatable actions. Like waking up at the same time, having your coffee at the same time, taking the same walk, making your bed. I know, it sounds like I'm telling you the answer to breaking your deepest life pattern is making your bed. But stay with me. Your brain is using enormous energy to build those new neural pathways right now. It doesn't need more things that are new right now. It needs tiny pockets of, oh, I know what happens next. Those small, predictable things are like rest stops for your nervous system while it builds the new road, the new pattern. Third, feel forward, not backward. And I want to say that again so you don't gloss over it. Feel forward, not backward. When the discomfort hits, your instinct is to look backward, to remember how at least the old pattern was familiar, to romanticize what you left. Instead of doing that, even for 50 seconds, imagine what the new pattern feels like in your body. Not what it looks like on paper, not the goals. What does it feel like to be the version of you who doesn't go back? Where do you feel that in your body? Give your brain a preview of the destination so it has something to move toward, not just something it's running from. You need to give your brain something to work with. And the fourth step, very importantly, expect the pull to go back and don't judge it. You will want to go back to the old pattern. You will want to text your ex. You will want to say yes when you've decided to say no. You will reach for the phone. The pull doesn't mean you're failing. It means your brain is doing exactly what brains do, reaching for the familiar. But when the pull comes, don't fight it. Don't shame yourself for having that pull. Just don't follow it. Notice it, become consciously aware of it, and name it. There's the pull. And you let it pass, and it will pass. And it will probably feel like hell, but it will pass. And every single time it passes without you following it, you are laying down new neural pathways. You are building the new road to the new pattern, the road that will take you to the future version of yourself you are trying to create. So here's what I'd really like you to take from today. Our patterns are proof that our brain learned something a long time ago, and our brain has been faithfully repeating that pattern ever since. That's how brains work. It's not wrong. And when we finally break a pattern, it feels like shit. And that's not a sign we made the wrong choice. That's the space between. It's supposed to be uncomfortable. It means our brain is rewriting its coding. We're not stuck. We're just buffering. You know the buffering process on your laptop when you're trying to open a new program and it's taking time? That waiting while the wheel spins feels like hell. The discomfort of change is not the same as the discomfort of danger. And learning to tell the difference might be one of the most important things you ever do. So this week, watch out for your reruns. Spot them with curiosity, not shame and judgment. Ask what they need. And if you've recently broken a pattern and you're in the space between right now, be gentle with yourself. Soothe your body. Anchor in small, predictable actions. Feel forward. And when the pull comes, let it pass. Don't follow it. You're not going backward. You're building a new road. And new roads take time. Next week is the final episode of this series, Part 8. And we're closing with the question that everything in the series has been leading to. What does it actually mean to trust yourself? Because staying in the space between, tolerating the discomfort, choosing the new road over the old highway, all of that requires one thing: self-trust. And in next week's episode, we're going to explore what that really means and how to build it. And I can't wait to share that with you. For now, you can watch this episode on my YouTube channel or check out my shorts, which are bite-sized tools to build mental fitness, one small step at a time. Please hit subscribe while you're there. And share this episode with people who keep ending up in the same place and cannot figure out why. Share this episode with people who need to hear that their patterns aren't failures, they're information. And as always, what comes from the heart reaches the heart. And today, with deep compassion for every pattern you've repeated and every time you've judged yourself for it, this comes straight from my heart to yours. I'll see you next week for the finale.